So we're continuing our exploration of the theurgy of the high holidays. We talked about Rosh Hashanah, which is basically about sweetening judgments. And then Yom Kippur, where the Rachel ascends independent of Zer Anpin 5 levels up in Ima to receive from the mouth of Ima directly the breath from Arich Anpin, which is, as you know, all of the Partsufim dress one inside the other. So you have the 5 Partsufim are Arich Anpin, the long face, Abba, the father, Ima, the mother, Zer Anpin, small face, son or groom, and the Malchut or Nukva. Same Malchut is sovereignty, Nukva is female. It's the same interchangeable term, with slight shade of difference, but it's for our purposes the same. So you have Zer Anpin, the small face, Malchut, sovereignty, or the Shekhinah or Nukva, the presence of God. So, and then we have us. So we are receiving, and Theurgy is connecting to these Partsufim and having in mind actually to manipulate them and to move them and to have it that our yearning from below, our desire for God is actually bringing the bride and groom together in heaven. So it's the idea of not we're controlling reality, but we have an effect that God allows us to have this desire and to connect, and somehow in our connection we have a Kavanot, a theurgic intention, and Kavanot means intention, Kavanot, intention, and the intention is basically to bring the bride and the bridegroom together in a union so she can become pregnant and give birth. And what does she give birth to? Everything good that you could ever experience. So, or the world as a whole. So there are different Partsufim. There's not just Zer Anpin and Nukva, Partsuf, divine image. Again, this is not a beginner's class. I don't want to have to translate every term. So that's all the translation you're going to get. The rest is just going to be the Kabbalistic terminology. You need to know the names of the 10 Sefirot. Okay, I said I wasn't going to translate anymore, but Keter, crown, Chochma, Keter, crown, Chochma, wisdom, Bina, understanding. Right arm is chesed, or giving, or kindness. Right arm, gevora, strength, or holding back, restraint or strength. The torso is tiferet, that is splendor, balance, or beauty. Right leg is netzach, eternity, victory, or dominance. And left leg is hod. Hod is majesty, or splendor, or submission. And the organ is yesod, which is foundation or connection. And the feet are malchut, sovereignty. And but also the organ of yesod, the head of the organ, I guess you call it the corona, is actually also called tzedek. It's called justice or righteousness, and it is the malchut of the male body. So again, that's important for what we're going to be saying today, because there's malchut, which is the bride, the wife, and there is malchut in the male body itself. So the entire body ends with yesod, and there's a malchut for the yesod, which is again the corona. So again, the body is a parable. It's we describe the Talmud says that God gave the Torah in the language of man, and as everybody knows, we can use anthropomorphisms to describe something of godliness, because we only can use human language. And mi basari echeze eloka, like Job, it says in the book of Job, mi basari, from my flesh, echeze, I shall see eloka, God. So from my flesh I'll see God, which the Arizal interprets to mean that and as I always say, Maimonides says the same thing, that you want to know about God, you look at how the world works. You look at biology, astronomy, and the like. So what are we doing? In Yom Kippur, we it's a female holiday in a sense. It's the mother and daughter reunion, and the way I understood in the airport coming back from Burlington, on my way back from Burlington, Vermont. I'm on a trip now. We're broadcasting from somewhere in Arizona, about 5 miles from the Mexico border, 5 miles from the border of New Mexico, and some tens of miles north of the Mexican border. And it so you didn't need to know that. Anyhow, back to the subject. So yeah, let's say you have a woman and she's very dependent on her husband, but it's a good thing. They have a good relationship. Okay, sometimes they fight, sometimes they're separate, sometimes they're more often they're together. But it's a good relationship, and their dynamic is she's receiving from him, that he is very giving, and whatever he has he gives to her. However, it's more, what brings them together more is the desire of their children. Actually, the desire of their children, their kids. They want to be together, and sometimes they don't, and they're not thinking about divorce. But you know how it is that relationships can be. All relationships are a lot of work. So, but when they think about their kids, the kids actually are desiring and praying for them to come together, and the kids have an unusual influence with their desire and their prayers. So the 364 days out of the year, she receives everything she has from her husband. He gives her money, and he gives her emotional stability, and she doesn't, not willfully, she gladly receives from him. That's their dynamic. What he has physically, he gives to her, and spiritually, his consciousness he's giving to her, and he causes her to grow emotionally. So it's a good relationship. But then one day a year, she goes to her mother's place. She visits with her mother once in a while. They talk on the phone. But one day a year, she actually leaves her husband, and she spends the whole day with her mother. And this is a very, very special day for her, because this is the day that the mother says things to recharge her batteries. And the mother is telling about stories from her family, from her parents and her parents' parents. And she's saying things that touch the heart of the daughter and raise her daughter up. And she says one thing about let's say about certain advice, motherly advice about cooking, about dealing with the house, about making a living and things like that. Motherly wisdom about helpful hints and so forth. And then she talks about emotions, how to deal with the husband, how to deal with her friends and family members. And then she says, and then the mother is a very wise woman. She gives her daughter ideas and food for thought and intellectually satisfying things about history and about maybe mathematics, whatnot. You can think of any number of things. The mother is very well educated and has some interesting ideas to share. And it's that precious day that raises up her daughter, to charge up her daughter for the whole year. And it's the very breath of the mouth of her mother that's going into her ears and enriching her soul. That is Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is Rachel is the daughter. The partsuf of Rachel is on the back of Zeir Anpin, from the upper third of the torso and below. And Rachel, she's separated on the 10 days of repentance. Every day she separates one sphira, until finally on Keter, the sort of Malchut is sovereignty. It separates her Malchut from the. They're back to back, so she's down below as a point under the world of Atzilut. Zeir Anpin is in Atzilut, and Malchut is now just one point. She's very small. And Zeir Anpin gives her the energy that he receives from above in order to get her to grow. So she separates and then she separates from the lower three sefirot. That was what I was talking about, the mother giving her helpful hints and about physical things in the world. And then emotionally, afterwards, Rachel rises, or Malchut in general rises in 10 days of tshuva, and she separates from the back of the middle three sefirot and the torso and the arms of Zeranpin, which has to do with emotions and action and emotion, and then help the intellectual enrichment. And then we didn't get to Yom Kippur yet. We're still in Rosh Hashanah. So in Rosh Hashanah, this is all happening from Zeranpin. Zeranpin is giving his consciousness, his da'at, and everything he has to separate, to cause the nisirah, to separate the male and the female. Again, the man, in the verses of creation, when God created man, it says, male and female he created them. Male and female he created them. And the Midrash says that they were created like a Siamese twin, with a man's face in the front and the female face in the back. So how did they become Adam and Eve, which are again the human paradigm for what's going on in heaven, or before creation even, is to do us through an operation. So he says God was a great anesthesiologist. He caused the man to go to sleep, and he separated the man from the female. So in the Theurgy, the Kavanot of the Arizal, Rabbi Isaac Luria, it's a separation. So she's separated, and from below Yesod. She's separated from the lower three sefirot. She's separated from Chagat, Chesed Gevurah Tiferet, and she's separated from Keter Chochmah and Bina, the upper three, called Kachab, and then they can come on Rosh Hashanah. Then finally they can come together. But then once they come together, it's not enough. When they get to every 10 days, all the way from Malchut, and every day there's another level of the sweetening of the judgment. The sweetening of the judgments on Yom Kippur, on Rosh Hashanah, when we don't nullify judgments, but we sweeten judgments, is those 4 levels. So those 4 levels were bringing her from Bria up to Atzilut. She's a point under the world of Atzilut, under Yesod of Zeranpin, and then he gives her the power to grow the lower 3 sefirot, and then the middle 3 and the upper 3. So she's basically growing, and then that's the sweetening of her judgments on Rosh Hashanah. And then in the 10 days of tshuva, every day she separates 1 sefirah from being back to back to becoming back to front. Front. Her front is to Zeranpin's back every day. She separates from back to front, and Malchut. Then she separates from being back to being back to front, her front to his back. On the second day of tshuva, second day of Rosh Hashanah, that's Chochmah. And then so forth every day, until finally she gets to this stage on Yom Kippur, and that's not enough. They have to come together. And finally, when they come together in the prayer on Yom Kippur, then finally she can give birth to all the goodness. But then that's not enough. Then Rachel, the lower, again, the upper 3 and the upper third of the back of Zeranpin are Leah, the partsuf of Leah, and then from the middle 3, there's 3/3 of the torso. Tiferet is the neck to the chest, and the chest to the navel, and the navel to the waist. Those are the 3/3 of Tiferet. So Leah is from Keter of Zeranpin, Chochmah Bina, Keter down to upper third of Tiferet of Zeranpin on the back, and Rachel is the lower third of Tiferet, from the navel to the waist, all the way down to the feet. So that's called the partsuf, the upper partsuf of Leah, and the lower partsuf of Rachel. And on the front of Zeranpin, you have also corresponding, the upper 3 are Yisrael, and the lower 7 are Yaakov. So there's Zeranpin, Nukva, like this, and the upper 3 in the back of Zeranpin are Yisrael, the lower 7 Yaakov. Upper 3 in the back of Nukva, or the back of is the upper 3 of the back of Nukva are Leah. Let's see, it's just directly onto the back of Zeranpin. Nukva is the whole Malchut, and she's divided into, and sometimes she's nukva or malchut, which is all the 10, and sometimes she's specifically, there's specific partsufim. From the upper 3 is Leah, and the lower 7, and malchut is Rachel. So on Yom Kippur, Rachel independently ascends from Zeranpin going up to Ima. Again, the lower partsuf is a garment for the upper partsuf. So Zeranpin and Nukva, they're also inside. They're inside the womb of the mother usually, and when they're in the embryonic state, they're both, like when we're sleeping, they go back to an embryonic state, and then when we pray, they grow from being an embryonic state to they give birth, so to the point where Zeranpin is 6 sfirot, and then Zeranpin is a full 10 sfirot, and then he's again giving over to the female. To every day there's a nisira, the separation is nisira, separating the male from the female from the male. So every day there's a separation during the prayer, and so like when we are praying the first blessing in the Amidah, Magen Avraham, the shield of Abraham, the first blessing in the silent standing prayer, the Amidah, we're causing this to happen. They're back to back, and then at the end of the first blessing, they start again and build each other front. She builds him. They grow together front to front. At first, he has to become 10 sfirot, and then he brings her up to be 10 sfirot, and then finally there's a zivug. There's zivugim on every level. There's a zivug on the level of the lower 3 sfirot. In the silent prayer, there's a zivug in the level of the middle 3 sfirot. In the Chazan's repetition, when the prayer leader repeats the 18 blessings out loud for the congregation, and the congregation says Amen, that's on the level of Chesed Gvor Tiferet, Chagat, and the falling on the face, when we say Tachanun, when we do the confession, and we break our hearts with very heartbreaking psalms, after the Chazan's repetition of the 18 benedictions, that's the highest level of Keter Chochmah and Bina. That's the zivug on the highest level. So that's a totally different story. I'm just trying to say how the same process happens every day in the prayer. So let's so that's Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Rachel is receiving directly from the mother. The mother is a garment for the father, and the father is a garment for Arich Anpin, the long face. And everything is a garment for Adam Kadmon. Adam Kadmon is the Godhead. The primordial man or primeval man. I don't know what the difference between primordial and primeval is. Maybe it doesn't matter. But Kadmon, of ancient times, meaning before the world was created, before Zeranpin and Nukva, before anything, way back. Adam Kadmon is the first thing to come out of the infinite in the empty space. God creates an empty space in all his infinite light. He brings a ray of his light into the empty space and creates 10 concentric circles. That's the very first act of creation before the creation of the world. And those 10 circles are Adam Kadmon. So that's the infinite. Adam Kadmon is from our perspective, that's the infinite. So everything in this world is a garment for Adam Kadmon. So Adam Kadmon is on the inside. It's right here with us, but it's going all the way back to before the creation of the world. And it's absolute infinity. It's the expression of absolute infinity in our minds, and which is everywhere. But then there's basically there's a garment for when the partsufim were created after the breaking of the vessels. Remember the central myth of the Arizal, again, myth, reality. It's reality and myth. We're also a myth in relation to the upper reality. So God created 10 sfirot, the 10 kings of Edom mentioned in the Parshat Vayishlach in Genesis. And each king reigned and died. Sorry, the 7 kings, the kings who reigned in Edom before there was a king in Israel. I forget which chapter in Genesis. And those are the 7. God created the 10 sfirot, and he created vessels, and he puts his light into vessels. The upper 3 vessels could withstand the light. They were strong enough. The lower 7 vessels were not strong enough, so they shattered. So Chesed shattered, Gevurah shattered, etc., down to Malchut. They all shattered. Sparks of creation, and the vessels are created death and darkness in the world. And every mitzvah we're doing is to make a restoration. So then finally there's an 8th king, Hadar, who has a wife. And meaning God created, joined mercy together with judgment. The man is mercy, the female is judgment, the man is chesed, the woman is gevurah, and the woman limits, the husband gives, the woman limits, the woman has judgments, the man sweetens her judgments with soft speech, and etc. So it's very important in interpersonal relationships. Your hubbies out there, you want to have a good relationship? Speak softly, number 1. So now everybody's going to start fighting out there because once you know that, then the evil inclination wells up and like, oh, I'm supposed to speak softly. I know, I want to have a good relationship. I'm supposed to speak softly. Okay. Oh, honey, how's it going? So it gets a little worse before it gets better, but it doesn't have to be that way. You could just get enlightened right now and speak softly. So it's all about willpower, really. So remembering how to think about before you act. Not easy. I've been there. It's not easy. Okay. Anyhow, back to the subject. So we basically what did God do? He saw the world could not exist completely on judgment. The 7 kings who lived and died. The 7 sefirot in one column, that's judgment. So God, and then everything broke. So God joins this is from the Talmud. God saw that the world could not exist solely on judgment, so he joined the aspect of mercy to the aspect of judgment. So everything was on the level of judgment, on the level of the ruach, and then the nefesh, the lowest level of the soul. And then after the breakage, in the 8th king, he was Hadar, and his wife was Mehetavel in the Bible. Hadar and Mehetavel, he reigned and he had a wife. Something that none of the other 7 kings had. They didn't have a wife because it was just them, it was just judgment. What, my way or the highway? So they broke. That created death and darkness in the world. Then Hadar and Mehetavel come together, and that's as if to say that he created male and female, and then he recreated the sefirot in right, left, and middle columns. Recreating these instead of just one column, which is judgment, and cannot stand the world as the beginning of the Zohar and the Idra Rabbah, the central statement in the Zohar. Rabbi Shimon says, how long can the world stand in one column? We have to teach about the 3 columns and the balance of the right and the left in the central part of the Zohar called the Idra Rabbah. How long can the world stand in one column? So he created male and female, and he created the bilateral symmetry of the partsufim, which is echoed in human bodies, right, left, and middle. And that's basically creating these partsufim. So in every world we have these 5 partsufim. They come together. The father and mother are completely together all the time, and even when they're not father and mother, even if they're good relationship, when you stop being on the level of Zeranpin and Nukva, sometimes together, sometimes apart, the higher level is the father and mother, they're always together. That's in terms of Chassidut. Chassidut is basically explaining Kabbalah in terms of in our level of human behavior and ethical teachings, Musar, kind of Musar and Chassidut. So Chassidut is taking the Kabbalah and bringing it down to a level where people can understand and experience godliness, even not in a way that the common man can experience the same thing as the Kabbalists by taking the essence of the teachings of the Arizal and the Kabbalists, and the Baal Shem Tov brought it down. So on the level of Chassidut, we have, and then more like Musar. Musar is not Chassidut, it's just more about ethical behavior, how to behave. And so in terms of Musar of Kabbalah, say that the male, Zeranpin and Nukva are sometimes back to back, sometimes front to front. Okay. When they're together front to front, everything is wonderful. And back to back, everything is difficult. So So then when they raise to, then the father and the mother, the transformation being father and mother are always together front to front. Like Rav Adaya, the Rosh Yeshiva of Beit El, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, Rav Shalom Adaya, once said in a class, he said, when it was very simply, when mom and dad walk in the street, they walk together. There's Tre'in de lo mitpardin, it says in the Zohar, the Trein the Re'in de lo mitpardin, the two companions who are never separated. That's the father and the mother. When the woman's in Tokyo and her husband, when the wife is in Tokyo and the husband is in Los Angeles, they are still together because they're not together in physically, they're together emotionally and spiritually. So that's the lower level, again, the lower parts of Fim are a garment for the higher. Zeranpin is like a garment for the female. The mother is the garment for Zeranpin and the female. The father is a garment for all three. And then Arichanpin is being enclosed in these lower parts of Fim. And again, in the middle was Adam Kadmon. Then they're dynamic. The Zeranpin and Nukva are back to back. And they can only, there's no Zivug back to back, so they have to ascend into the mother and the father in order to be protected. Why are they back to back? They're back to back because the front pushes away evil forces and external forces. When you're vulnerable and your back is turned, they can get you from the back. So turn your front, and you can defend, you can push away any adversary. So basically, there's no zivug back to back. That's a protective measure. There's only a zivug front to front. Physically speaking, male and female cannot unite back to back. So that's a parable of the body for what's going on in heaven, and the hishtalshalut, the concatenation of the four worlds, it's in the parts of Fim, etc. So they have to ascend up into the womb of the mother in order to separate, again, like do the Nesirah, that happens every day, especially between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And then they can come front to front above in the mother because they're protected. And then they can go back down. When they go back down, the question is, okay, I have to see an answer for that. So it just came to mind. So that's more or less the Aleph Bet of the Partsufim. And now we're going to read just a little bit from about the lulav on Sukkot. So first, we're just going to talk a little about the laws, and then we're going to get into some with a little bit of reference to the Kabbalah. And next time, tomorrow, God willing, we'll get more into the Theurgy, the Kavanot of the shaking the lulav. So in Sukkot, we take a lulav, which is a palm branch, and three sprigs of myrtle, and three branches of myrtle, and 2 branches of willow leaves, and they're all bound. We bind them together. They have to be bound together to fulfill the mitzvah. And we have the etrog, the citron, and we hold the citron together at the base of the 3 other species. These are the 4 species that we take on the Sukkot holiday, all 7 days. The first day of Sukkot, it's a mitzvah from the Torah, scripturally ordained. And the next 6 days of Sukkot, it's rabbinically ordained, which is called derabanan, scripturally ordained, deraita. Rabbinically ordained, derabanan. So it's we keep the whole law, deraita and derabanan. So they say derabanan, it's like, where is derabanan mentioned in the Song of Songs? Ki tovim dodecha miyayin, your goodness is sweeter than wine. That's the rabbinic law that teaches us how to fulfill the Torah. So there are 2 levels of fulfillment of the mitzvot. There's deraita and derabanan, from scripturally based law and rabbinically based law, and they go hand in hand. You can't separate them really. So, because we're not Karaites. If you don't know what a Karaite is, I refer you to Wikipedia. They basically just followed the Torah law and they rejected the rabbinic law. There's a power struggle. So anyhow, so let's just translate the Arizal. So we take these four species, the citron together with the palm branch, the myrtle, and the willow, and we shake them in the 6 directions. Shake them to the south, to the north. The Arizal says, south, you go out, shake, into the heart, shake. Out, down to the south, shake, into the heart, shake. 3 times. Out and in. 3 times. And go out, put your arms out, shake. Bring to your heart, shake. And he says, it's not like some people have the mistake, incorrectly they're going out, shaking 3 times out, and then shaking 3 times by the heart, and then going to the next direction. So you go south 3 times, out, in, out, in, out, in 3 times. North, same thing, the 3 extension and contraction, out, in, 3 times. That's the north. Then we do it to the east 3 times, and then we do it up 3 times, then below, down 3 times, and then to the west 3 times, 3 times. Then the directions are Sfirot. The south is Chesed, kindness. The north is Gevora, strength. The east is Tiferet, balance, beauty. Up is Netzach, eternity, victory, dominance, the dominance of heaven over the earth. Down is Hod, majesty, or empathy. Actually, submissive. It wasn't. I said submissive because it's just, it's a phrase. But Hod is empathy or majesty. So to hold back and empathize from somebody who's giving and more dominant. Like when I speak and you listen, I'm dominant. You're empathetic. When I hold back and just don't speak and just listen, I need to be empathetic with the feelings and the speech of the person who I'm conversing with. So, and then Yesod is in the west, and they say the Shekhinah is in the west. Why does it say the Shekhinah? The Shekhinah is in the west, because in the Holy Temple, the Holy of Holies was in the western part of the building. Okay, so those are the directions, and let's read a little bit of the Arizal. Now we're going to explain the details of the lulav and its species, how they're hinted at in brief. We're going to explain briefly how they're hinted at in order to understand the secret of the na'anuim, the shaking. Afterwards, we're going to explain more, and below it will be explained that the 4 species that are in the lulav, meaning lulav is just, we call it shaking lulav, but we mean all 4, are hinted at in the 4 letters of God's name. That is Zer Anpin, and it's all Zer Anpin. The 4 species are Zer Anpin. In this way, that Yud is Chesed. It says Yud, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet. These are the 3 Hadassim. So with Yud, we have Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet. These are the 3 myrtle branches. Hey, it's Netzach and Hod. These are the 2, Netzach and Hod are the 2 willow branches. Vav is Yesod. This is the lulav. The Hey, the final Hey is the etrog. And that's the Malchut of Zer Anpin, which is the corona of the Yesod, which is called the head of the Tzaddik, the righteous. But, again, he says here, it's important to know that this Malchut that we are discussing is, don't be disgusted, this is normal and natural. The head is not the female, not the wife, it is the corona of the Yesod. That's Malchut of the body. Don't make this mistake when we're doing the Kavanot of the lulav and etrog. So in other words, Malchut is constantly cleaving to the body of Zer Anpin because it's a part of the body of Zer Anpin. That's the secret of the final Hey in God's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei. But the female is a complete partzuf unto herself. And her name is Elohim, or Adonai, Aleph Lamed He Yud Mem, or Adonai, Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, as is known. Therefore, It's called Pri Eitz Hadar, the fruit of the. It basically means a citrus fruit. It's Pri Eitz Hadar, modern Hebrew. But the fruit of literally translated, it's a splendorous tree, a majestic tree. Hadar has to do with hidur, beautifying. In Hebrew, beautify, hidur. Hadar, splendor, majesty. It's the same root, he, dalet, rish. Hadar is splendor. It's also splendor, just like hod is splendor. It's slightly different meanings. Hadar is like an outside splendor. You see it as beautiful on the outside. Mehudar is adorned, beautiful. When you do something extra beautiful, it's called mehudar. You are adorning. Mehudar. It's adorned. Mehudar, you translate adorned. That is to say, the Pri Eitz Hadar, again, you say that the female is Elohim or Adonai. She's a separate partzuf, as opposed to the Yesod and Malchut of the Yesod of the Zaranpin, which is the Corona. So, in the physical parable. So, as is known, therefore, she's called. It is called Pri Eitz Hadar. The tzaddik on the rosh of the head of the Yesod. The tzaddik on the head of the Yesod, Rosh tzaddik, the head of the Rosh tzaddik, the head of the tzaddik is called Pri Eitz Hadar, literally the fruit of a beautiful tree. That is to say, the fruit of the Yesod, the Corona, which is called Eitz Hadar, which is called a beautiful, adorned tree, a splendorous tree. But in modern Hebrew, Eitz Hadar is a citrus. So the fruit is the Atzara, the crown. So that's also Yesod Hadar. So, and that's the secret of Hadarta Pnei Zaken, where they have a mitzvah in the Torah. You're supposed to respect the elders. Where does it say in the Torah to respect elders? Hadar Pnei Zaken, to greet the elders with a beautiful Hadar face. Hadar Pnei Zaken is to greet the elders, respect them, and greet them with a smiling face and with respect. That's called. So the Zaken is also like Tzaddik. The elder is ideally the Tzaddik, the righteous, and it's the secret. So the secret of Yesod and the Malchut of the Yesod is the secret of honoring elders. Actually, that's interesting. It's an idea we need to work out, or maybe not. So you feel free to do that. That's all Yesod Hadar. That's the secret of Hadarta Pnei Zaken, to adorn the elder with honor and respect. In the world of Torah, we revere our elders. So, and ideally, in the worlds not of Torah, we should also revere our elders for all the good they've given us and giving us over our whole heritage. So we owe them respect. So this will resolve the contradiction in several statements in the Zohar, which it seems that they're contradictory, because we find in the Zohar that the etrog is Yesod, and also we find in another place that it's called Malchut. And they're both true, because it's talking about Malchut of Yesod, and this is the reason why the prohibition of separating the etrog from the lulav when you're taking it. So this is why you cannot separate the etrog from the lulav. They have to be touching each other. Because the lulav is Yesod, the etrog is the crown that is cleaving to the Yesod without any separation. That is, as it is said, this is the secret of what's mentioned in the Rekanati, the great rabbi who explains the mysteries in the Nachmanides' commentary in the Torah. Ramban is Nachmanides, and the Rekanati is a great rabbi who, among other things, he knew Kabbalah, and he explains the secrets hidden in Nachmanides, the Ramban's writings. So, he's talking about a dream. The Rekanati talked about a dream where he saw a wise man, which was separating the last letter from the Yud Kei Vav in God's name. He separated the He from the first three letters of God's name. And why did he make such a separation? In the dream, he made the separation because he was not holding the etrog together with the other three species in the lulav. And for there, we're going to pause here, and God bless.